Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is Tuesday night, and this is Confidence Strategies 101. I'm Carmen Milagro, confidence strategist. I'm also a CBD educator and an entrepreneurist. As you may know or may not know, Confidence Strategies is designed to share and showcase positive ideas and stories and resources that we want to highlight for you. We want to introduce you to incredible entrepreneurs and coaches and mentors and people that are doing extraordinary things in their community. So that pretty much exemplifies tonight's guest. But first, I do want to make sure and remind you that we love it when you like and comment and when you share our videos. And that's always appreciated. Tonight's webisode is sponsored in part by Music City Hit Factory. And I guess I'm just going to go right into the introduction for my guest this evening. She's my friend and colleague. We knew each other, back when I created my nonprofit, Peanut Butter and Jam Music Sessions for Kids, which some of you have heard me talk about. And she's really someone who puts her money where her mouth is, and she gets things done. In her early career, Trish led vocational training for teens in Ireland when she was only 19 years old. She's provided advocacy for homeless and immigrant families here in San Francisco. That's how we met. She's taught secondary social studies on the U.S.-Mexico border with Teach for America. She's pioneered the Sandy Bay Alternative School in Honduras and created community engagement guidelines for Room to Read, a school library program in Asia and Africa. Now, for 20 years, Trish has been building teams and securing investment to promote economic development and disrupt systemic poverty through innovation and education around the globe. Trish is the founder of the Future School of Fort Smith, a public charter high school centered on student voice and real-world application. She's also created Think Future, a network of investors, thought leaders, and students who are creating equitable access for opportunity in public education. And there's a lot more, trust me when I tell you that. But we're going to focus on that for today, except for two things. In 2013, she was named one of Arkansas Times Visionaries of the Year, and she is the unstoppable Trish Flanagan. I'm going to have her join us right now. Trish, welcome to Confidence Strategies 101.
Hi, it's fun to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. I haven't seen you in a while. We chatted. You've done some other podcasts with me, and we have spent time together. And of course, I follow all your posts on social media, and so I get insights as to what you're doing. But I wanted to just kind of reintroduce you to the San Francisco Bay Area community, and just kind of wanted to give it up for you, just to kind of give us a sense of where you are right now and what you've been up to.
Yeah. Well, I guess the life of an entrepreneur, it's hard to sit still. I'm actually based in St. Louis right now, where I grew up. So, just really seeing the value of spending time with my dad and my family that I haven't been able to just kind of kick it with for a while. So I'm here, working with some schools, helping a school to launch their internship program in a traditional setting. So that's really fun and challenging. And then still working with Future School. We just closed on about a $6.5 million construction project loan funded, philanthropic dollars and whatnot. So right. We broke ground on that. Looking for all ways that I can, possibly shake things up and just create more access for kids.
Right. Well, clearly nothing's changed since I first met you. I remember, and you and I have talked about this, because it was for me, it was such a pivotal moment. I remember, we're in the schoolyard where we were both, working at the time, and I'm not going to name any names, but it was a very interesting experience for me. But that's how we met. So I'm supremely grateful. You know, you were instrumental in when I was starting Peanut Butter and Jam Music Sessions for Kids. You introduced me to Lisa Beatty, like all of that, right? But that moment that I remember that was so key was of course, you know, the I just want to take care of everyone, nurturing, I want to help everyone person in me was really struggling at times. You know, there were times where I was really stressed out because I didn't feel like I was doing enough and I couldn't help everyone. And you basically like took me by the shoulders and said, stop it. Like, you can only help. If you can only help one child at a time, that's enough. And I still remember that so vividly. And I go back to that moment quite often because I haven't changed that much either. But I think, I mean, I'm sure that it wasn't as impactful for you as it was for me, but hearing you say that, it really did change my life. And that's one of the things that, you know, that I talk about is, you know, confidence is the building block for a child's success story. That's really a big premise and a big part of what Peanut Butter and Jam Music Sessions for Kids was. And I would like us to have this discussion around the various aspects of confidence, if you don't mind, you know, both personally and professionally. I'd like to go back to when you were growing up. I mean, you left for Ireland at a very young age. Did you always know that you were going to be this champion for children's educational rights?
Well, so I'll say this. It's funny because I sort of almost cringe at just when someone sort of like touted as the third, or it makes me feel anxious. And I hear other people like I compare myself, like, why I'm not doing enough. I shouldn't be that person. Prime Minister of New Zealand's 39, and I'm a year older than her. And what have I done? So
what do you mean?
Well, we all do that, right? We all have. I think we all have that internal, that ego that's always trying to like pull us down and kill our confidence. And I think the best thing that I learned along the way, the advice that I've gotten is get out of your own way. So going back to what was driving me as a young person was I grew up with a lot of privilege, and the gift that my parents gave me was pointing that out for me as a kid. Living in St. Louis, which is still very segregated, in many cities. In fact, every city I've ever been to or lived in or the country for that matter. And my parents instilled a great lesson for me as a little kid was, you know, I would hang out in the bad part of town or whatever it was. My parents were volunteering at a food bank or whatever, and I didn't understand why their neighborhood looked so much different than mine. And so at a young age, I was so young that, I mean, in car seats still, that there wasn't I was so fresh in my thinking, and I was connecting so quickly to my brothers and sisters and across town, that just kind of, I guess, instilled in me a desire to use my privilege in the ways to create more opportunities for people. Because I've worked hard, and I've done a lot of things as an individual, but there's also been things that I think we don't realize some of us have been given, or are benefiting from the structures that exist around us.
Right.
So that's really kind of where I guess the theme of my work has been, and I can't say exactly what drives me to do it, except for I don't know what else to do.
But clearly, I mean, we're right. We go back to, we're a product of our environment, and we're a product of what our family creates for us and what our family teaches us. It seems to me that you've been supported and indoctrinated because of your family. But what about your friends? Like, because sometimes I know for me, for example, like some of my friends just shake their heads and they're just like, they're in retirement mode. They are, enjoying their grandchildren. Like, I mean, that's my age group. And it's not that they don't care. It's not that they just don't understand. So I'm curious does it sometimes feel like you're not connected to even maybe some family members because you're on a specific path, which is not a traditional path. So I'm just wondering if is your confidence helped by this? Is it like fuel for your confidence, or is your confidence maybe eroded a little bit? Because sometimes, we're not understood.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know we share a lot of that in common. That's another gift that my family gave me is that they, it's twofold. I've just never really fit in a box. I've been 6 feet tall since I was 12. And so I just carried a big stick, I guess, in my attitude. And so my family's just never really said, why aren't you married yet? Or why don't you have this yet? Or everything else. And I think it in part because of they love and support me, but I think also we're very logical thinkers. And we see that there is no pot of gold, waiting for us. And, because it's that trap. That's what I've been talking to a lot of friends recently about, that trap of, if I just have this, I find myself doing that now that I'm a little bit more stationary and looking around and going, oh, if I just had this cool house and a porch and I had all this cool, this cool stuff. And then as soon as you get it, then you want something else.
Right.
And I think that probably you and I in a similar way realize that that's an illusion, that you're not going to find happiness chasing down the next best thing, but right where you are.
Right. Yeah. I think that's probably what drew us as friends, like right from the get-go. We were just so completely like, I think, weren't we like at the opposite end of the schoolyard? Weren't we like on duty or something? And then we just somehow ended up, I just remember us like sort of like in the middle of the schoolyard, and we just started talking, and I just thought you were cool, like, oh my God, I get her. She gets me. And it was such a great feeling because that doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
And I think, I've been doing a lot of work with kids throughout my life, and it's just sort of been a theme. But I don't have children of my own. I haven't gotten married. I haven't done the traditional ways. But I'm curious too if you ever feel like, do you ever second guess yourself? Do you ever like feel like, yeah?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I think it's a survival technique. I think unfortunately, I think women do that too much. I often, and I know that sometimes it's like, I'll leave the gender stuff out of it, but I do think that the way that the world is negotiated is largely in a very overtly over masculine way, where you have to ruffle, flip, show your feathers and boast. And I learned a lot in terms of confidence from, in building the school and building a school board and then reporting to them. And most of them were business folks and men. But yeah, self-doubt. I mean, just thinking like, I look now, I just turned 40 and I see I understand why people take the safe route and they just, they finish school, they get married, because I look at some of my contemporaries that are my age and they've been building a nest egg, and they've got more financial options in one respect. But I think that for me, what I've realized is that my currency is freedom. I never want to feel like I'm tied down to something because I'm slaving away at it. And I've never gotten criticized for that. And I think diving wholeheartedly into learning about the business world and going to business school was a big piece of me saying, we need to rethink things, because I'm working now sort of more in an education or in the teaching capacity in one of my roles. And I'm just seeing like, this is incredible. Like people that I know that are super wealthy would never work for free like this. I'm kind of probably all over the place, but yeah, doubting, second guessing myself because I don't fit into a trajectory, which it would be sometimes really great. I daydream about that. Like how, if I was just like a hardcore business person and I just became a CEO, and by this point I'd be, tiger mom or what, I'd be leaning in all over the place, which I do lean in different ways, but I just,
right.
It's just different currency, I guess.
Yes. I love the way that you phrase that because, you're just a baby as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm 16 years older than you, and so I remember these internal dialogue moments. And what I can tell you is that there's something pretty magical, I think, when you hit 50, because I feel like those moments where you're spinning a little bit, all of a sudden it's just like, who gives a rat's ass? I am who I am. I've done what I've done. I'm not going to at least for me, I was just like, I am just not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to spin. Like it doesn't matter. And what purpose does it serve? I could be helping someone else.
Yeah.
On the flip side, right, that entrepreneurial spirit is, like I spent so much time volunteering and I still do. I love it. It's my nature. I can't help it. And that's something else to embrace, because the other currency that I feel, besides the freedom, because, I could, like right now, my nephews, my niece, they are grown. That was really my primary focus for really being anchored to the Bay Area. But I'd be lying if I said I have not thought about just now I can just take off. And, a lot of my friends would not be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, but the other part of the currency conversation that I love, and I really do love that word, so I'm going to keep using it, is the fact that I may never, and you may never, I think you're closer because of how you do this, but I may never know exactly how many lives, how many children that I've helped. I may never know all of that. I'm in touch with a few, from back in the day when you met the little ones, when you introduced me to them, when I was starting Peanut Butter and Jam Music Sessions for Kids. Every so often I get a post or I get an Instagram or whatever, and they're grown. So I may never know the numbers, but I do know that I have impacted children's lives, and I do know that I have helped.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
So, that's kind of what really, at the end of the day, that was what I was trying to do. So I feel pretty successful about that, right? But that's not to say there aren't moments. There were moments, but I think what you're going to find is in these next 10 years, Trish, I promise you, and you'll probably figure it out sooner than I did. But I promise you, you're just going to get to that point where, no more, because it serves no purpose to second guess.
Right.
It really doesn't.
Right. And I think, just kind of going back to that, what's, for example, with the school that literally sprung up from, literally the ashes of a Boys and Girls Club in the hood. And I downloaded an application from on the Board of Education website, from Arkansas's Board of Education, and for a charter school, and I started filling it in. Right. And every step along the way, it's a $2 million budget at this point, and we've got 230 kids. It's I don't manage any of that anymore, but all along the way, it was really a lot of prayer. And again, so I was talking about earlier, getting out of my own way. And people said that to me in a really secular sense, but I actually, took action on it in a very spiritual sense, and the less I try to control and like smash it into my human box of thinking, like, okay, how can I do this? Like right now I'm planning some curriculum for this internship class, and it's stressing me out because I'm like, how do I put this into a box? And it's like, the more I let go and let it unfold how it needs to be. And that doesn't mean like not be prepared and just not be organized, but just really get in, sit and listen. Like, what is it that what's the right idea that needs to happen, whether it's for this town of Fort Smith where the school is, or for my students, like what's the right idea, not what I think they need to do, or what or what they think they need to do, but sort of like just what is the right thing. And that intuition gets stronger and stronger if you call it intuition or you call it divine intervention or whatever it is.
Right. Whatever it is, it still works.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I love the fact that, you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that your foundation is making sure that your program or programs that your kids participate in, that they have a voice and they're able to tell you what they need and what are they looking for and what's important to them. And I think that's something that is so intricate. It's just such an intricate part of being an entrepreneur and being a success is you have to know what you need. But if you're never taught to express that and you're never able to express it, then how do you get your point across? So I wonder if that element in your programs, if you feel that this has helped your kids feel secure and confident, that they feel empowered and confident in themselves to say, hey, this works for me, or this is what we need, or, this is, can we just continue to develop this together? Do you feel like that's a huge part of what they get the benefits of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, the second word on my syllabus for these high school students I'll be working with as a teacher right now is colleague, and that's the pride that that a young person takes when someone that they respect or is in a position of authority, speaks to them in that way of, you're my apprentice. I'm going to show you the ropes. I'm going to learn from you. And it was a two-way street, because not only do the kids really respond to that, because it sort of breaks down the walls of, power dynamics. And all of a sudden it's like, I mean, I tell the kids, I'm like, here's how I got to where I got, and I make this kind of money. And they're like, I'm all ears. Or whatever, or I've traveled to these places, or I've had this freedom in my life, this flexibility, this, autonomy, and that's what they're looking for. And I'm like, here's how you do it. You got to learn how to jump through hoops. Right. You got to learn how to make friends with people that you're not like them. And then the flip side of that which is really, really cool as well, in terms of the internships, is the business folks that might not, because again, going back to the segregation of our society, would not really ever know a kid from that part of town or that culture or whatever personally.
Right.
They've got kids showing up and they develop relationships through that internship. And next thing you know, there's a whole face to a segment of society that they would never even know, but they're understanding their situation and their challenges in a very real way. And so it's just a great thing for the individual, but also for the community.
Right. It's making
that's why I'm just like, I need more people. I need more money. I need more building space. I need time. I'm literally like jumping back into the classroom. I mean, I had a 5-syllable title, Carmen. I mean, I was a superintendent. And now I'm, going to be teaching I'm a high school teacher, and it's fun and it's daunting. And it's again, reminding me of like the things that we've got to do differently with our resources.
Well, you and I should probably have like a whole discussion offline, because my mind right now is just like, oh my gosh. Okay. But confidence strategies is actually one of the things that I broke out from Peanut Butter and Jam Music Sessions for Kids. And I work with startup entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, a lot of Latina entrepreneurs who, especially during this time in our history, are contemplating or considering becoming entrepreneurs, and yet they have no idea where to start. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of feels full circle for me right now, is that I started this program with music and teaching kids about the business of music in conjunction with, all the fun, magical stuff. Right. And so I was able to take this whole process that I go through, and it's deep. It's really deep. And I've come to realize that there's a lot of adults who are already in business, but they have no idea who they are, why they're doing what they're doing, how, like they vacillate, and I'm just thinking, but if they were able to figure this out back then, like everything around you could be crumbling, but your mission, like what you want to do with your business doesn't, if you know all of that. And so those are the things that I work. This is why this whole program started, is there's a lot of people that just don't know where to start. And so by sharing your stories and sharing other stories, and sometimes we go right into tips and advice, So I'd love to have our own conversation about this. And if I can help in some way, you let me know.
Well, it's funny that you say that about so I ordered, all my students are going to be reading Starting with Why by Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
And it's a business book. And we're talking about community service class and internship class, but and the reason why is that I want them to start from there instead of just going right into the tools, like build a resume and everything else. Because if you know your why, then things will open up. People will connect to you. Resources will come in your direction. But if you're chasing money or chasing prestige, or even sometimes we do things in the guise of helping others, but it's not really what our why is. And if you get really clear on that, then things will open up for you.
Right. And it's it is such a process. I think a lot of people don't realize the process that you can go through, because from all of that comes everything that you need. Your brand, your mission statement, everything, your business plan comes from that. And to me, that's the most important time, and where the majority of your energy should be focused on initially, and then you execute, so I'd love to talk to you about that also. But I also wanted to sort of get like on a broader spectrum with the work that you've done, the work that you continue to do. I mean, you've worked with kids all around the globe. Have you found that confidence issues are they seemingly universal in your experience and observation, or do they different from like culture to culture and environment to environment?
I think that there are certainly some commonalities, and then of course a lot of differences. I think one of the commonalities is, when it sort of from an anthropological perspective, or call it whatever, is exposure to experiences and people. I mean, I've, speaking of thinking of my experience around the world in different countries, and working with kids that don't have running water or shoes in the class, in an educational setting, and then working with some of the richest kids in the world, and they both have almost the same exact answer almost every time I ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they always say either whatever their parents are, or a doctor or a teacher. And I'm just like shaking. I want to shake the hell out of our public education system, because I'm like, why are we putting all this money into it? Do you know we spend on average $150,000 per student in kindergarten through 12th by free education that they don't pay for a penny? That is what we're paying for. I mean, the Arkansas budget, the state budget, was almost half of it went to K-12 education. And yet 40% of the kids that are going into college, we're not even talking about the kids that didn't graduate or the kids that did but didn't go to college, just 40% that did go to college have to take remedial classes. I mean, our national graduation rate for a 4-year university is now calculated over 4 years. That is how off balance our system is. And I try to look at like, what's the least common denominator? Like, what's the little tweak we can do, the smallest tweak to make the biggest change? And it's about exposure. It's about social capital and network.
And it's something that we all we kind of know this as adults, but yet most programs do not address it for kids.
No. I know. And that's what's so crazy. I mean, Carmen, I'm telling you, if you're And you can't just chase money, but we raised a lot of money from private individuals who've come, private donors who come to school, and I just introduce them to whatever students in the hallway is. I walk by, provided that they're not wearing pajamas, and that's my dress code.
Right.
But they're so floored by the handshake and the eye contact and the ability to reflect and to talk about what they're doing at their internship, what they like about the school, what, just reflect on their life at 15 years old. And it's so eye-opening for the adults because they're not used to that. And I'm just like, man, we're sitting on a gold mine if we just look at it differently.
Agree. Oh, gosh, I know this is bringing me back to the schoolyard conversations we used to. And it's so interesting because, there's this whole potential, and it is, like you said, it is a gold mine, and it's pretty much ignored, I think.
Well, here's part of the gold mine that I'm really been generating. So, I've been gravitating towards more and more is the kids like me and even in more privilege and elite positions. We look at the symptoms of poverty and we're like, oh, this is so sad. These kids are, they're poor and they can't read, or just like whatever's going on. All that whole risk factor list that, anyone can, grab them off. Right. And yet if if you tweak the understanding and the worldview of the minority elite students that are graduating and already on track to take over companies and run boardrooms and run for office, and you open their eyes to the realities of the world, and they're thirsty for it and quit whitewashing things, right. You're going to see change happen much faster than if we continue to look at individuals living in poverty and say, how can we just get you to do better?
Right.
And right now with with what's happening around the world and with George Floyd and whatnot, I've gotten into a lot of very uncomfortable conversations with other white people, which is what needs to happen, I believe. And they're shocked and in awe that they have any responsibility in what's going on, that there's anything going on in the first place. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And so our laws aren't changing to improve society. And, I'm probably on my soapbox. I know that I am, but whether you're interested in it from a youth advocacy perspective or social justice perspective or bottom dollar, poverty is expensive. The lack of productivity because of the poverty and the social inequity and the economic inequity in our country is costing us. I think I saw, maybe it was the World Bank. I can't remember who exactly did this report, but in 2010, with the amount of dropouts from high school, that cost us $330 billion in our economy because of lost wages, low productivity, social services, prison. I mean, the answers are there.
Right. And it's amazing how just by one phrase, a few words, like you said, the price of poverty is so expensive. That in itself could help change and revolutionize and innovate more and more.
But that's where we have to get to I'm like, I want to start working. I want to just tap into the top the 1% kids, because if they start to see that and understand that and push back against the narrative that the individuals can pull themselves up by the bootstrap, and there's everyone starts on an even playing field, and they really begin to understand that is not true. Because they're thirsty for truth. They're thirsty for social impact more now than any other generation, and take advantage of that.
Right. Agreed. When you were, I remember when you started sort of sharing with me your ideas for, future school, and it wasn't in detail, in depth, we didn't have that kind of time. You were already, not here in the Bay Area, but I was amazed and floored, and I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be incredible. And it has been. But one thing that I was always curious, and I didn't get a chance to really ask you, is what was it about the state of Arkansas that, it was like the perfect fit, it seems like, to be able to create this vision. You're the founder of this legacy. And do you think it would ever be possible here in San Francisco to create something like what you created in Arkansas?
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. Yeah, because again, it's making school more relevant and making the workforce more skilled.
Right.
So yeah, you can do it anywhere. Arkansas happened because of network, because of the people that knew, I started meeting, and I mean that's, a perfect example. And because of obviously you need funding, and that's another sort of more nuanced lesson that's come from this is, you know, education is an investment. It's R&D. I mean, I've got a million ideas and a million things I want to talk to the Supreme Court about in terms of what we've done, with education, but our professional sports leagues, for example, should be funding our high school sports programs. They're getting absolutely free R&D.
Right.
So there's a lot of those kinds of easy, literally flip a switch.
Yeah. It really, I know every time we have these discussions, I'm just like, oh my God, it's Trish. Like, you just infuse me with all of this. Like, okay, I'm not crazy when I'm sitting around looking at things. I like you, but not as expertly as you, but I see things in such a different way. And it's just, I can't help it. It sometimes keeps me up at night. It's just, I'm consulting on another project, which I think is going to be fabulous. And it's music education. It's an entire company slash city within the city of San Francisco, based on the power of music and music education and the business of music and various arms of it. It's just, it's like I haven't been this excited about a project in a long time. And all the experience from Peanut Butter and Jam music sessions for kids, it's like, it's all there to just drop it in. And it's
awesome.
It's pretty exciting. Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you about that as well. There's another thing, of course, that we're all dealing with here in San Francisco is there's this sense of there's so much learning loss. I'm hearing this term a lot right now because there's so much confusion and controversy. It's creating such havoc for our children. Like it's, this COVID situation, it's the thing that it is on every parent's mind, or at least should be. And I'm finding that there's a lot of conversations and discourse about parents just don't know what to do. They don't know how to advocate for their children. There's fear. There's all of these things. How do you, like, what's something that you could just advise people if you have an answer? Because I know that this is so deeply layered and complex, but if you've thought of something that could help, parents, kids navigate through these murky waters right now.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's everywhere you turn, it's sort of like a big question mark, followed by more, and without a time limit on it. It's like one thing to know, well, if I just get through this month and at the end of it, it'll be done. But so that's what's, I think, the lack of control is really creating a lot of anxiety. But the reality of it is that what do we really have control over in anyways? This
Right.
feels a little different, but in boiling it back down to more tangible things, I think two thoughts on that for, in terms of, I can say for myself as an educator and just, I don't have my own kids, but feeling that, I think one is go easy on yourself, be patient. They, do what you need to do. Like if you need, I think that's what a lot of schools have come to. And I think at the beginning of this in the spring, there were some schools that were just trying to keep people, busy work. I mean, stay busy, around the clock, keeping kids online and learning and stuff. I think the screen time is obviously going to be a real issue for, at home and just, maneuvering that. But take time away from your own work and put boundaries up for yourself and go for a walk with your kids. I mean, get old school with it. Go back, time travel back to the 80s and spend time outside and doing, just playing and being before we were, inundated with screens. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is, I think about, like, even right now as we get ready to start school next week, and we're just, bombarded with all these different tech platforms and things that we have to learn, and the steep learning curves everywhere we turn on trying to get ready for students. And, one thing that comes to my mind when I'm frustrated, because I like to be successful. I have been successful. It's part of my privilege, and part of what I've been, my efforts have led to that. But it helps me be in solidarity with my students or other people who they experience what feels like a lack of control and injustice day after day. And to say, like, shit, this does suck. And be able to share that with people, which you might not have had that opportunity in the past.
Right. No, I think those are great. Like getting back to some old school practices, it's not a bad thing, grow a garden with your child, all of those things, all of it. It's all, I mean, it actually, in some regards, might actually, in the long run, be incredibly helpful, because we do have a generation, in my opinion, we do have a generation where some kids, many kids, don't know how to do some very basic life skills.
Yeah.
Cooking.
Well, and I think
those sorts of things.
We have, I don't have the research behind this, but in front of me, but I know that it's there. We have major epidemic of anxiety, mental health. And those words sort of, I feel like they get played out a lot, but it really, if you just look at the correlation, like when we all got on screens and we couldn't live without this to stick everything in our life, before that, we didn't have these levels of anxiety and suicide and isolation. And so when this all went down, came down in March, I thought, man, this is an opportunity for us to actually really be deprived of, have to sit and think and do the meditative stuff that we know.
And create.
Yeah.
Create a garden. I just create things with your hands, like real, like you see the results of something that you may have built with your dad, or you could have baked some bread with your mom. And it sounds so weird, I think, for us to even talk about this, because some kids would be like, what are you talking about? Yeah. I want to post my selfie. Like, I don't have to, but there's sort of this opportunity to swing back the pendulum somewhat. Yeah. And I, for one, I mean, I'm in an apartment in San Francisco, and I can't tell you the joy, me personally, and I'm always busy. I've always got things to do, right? But the fact that I am growing like these plants and I'm cooking with my herbs, and it's just, there is something that renews your spirit on such a small, like micro level.
Yeah.
But, people, I mean, adults are struggling with anxiety and all of these things because of shelter in place, because the world has changed, travel has changed, the way that you were living your life is completely different than, than 6 months ago or 7 months ago. I forgot how long we've been in this. So imagine kids, their anxiety. If the adults aren't able to handle it, how are the kids going to be able to?
Yeah.
And so for me, of course, I always circle back to music and art and all of that, because if nothing else, one thing that I am hopeful, and I've said this before, one thing that I am hopeful about the fact that parents are the ones that are the primary, they're home. There's so many parents that are homeschooling. They had to, they've had to learn this whole new way to relate to their children. Is I hope that people realize the importance of art and music and the creatives as part of a regular curriculum on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because these were coping, or at least growing up for me, these were coping tools for the kinds of stresses that we had and anxieties that we had back then. But I had things to do. I had ways to express myself through the arts. So
totally. And I think I hope people will take it, more and more of us can take advantage of that. I mean, and really just realize like I caught myself this morning as I was doing my morning prayer work. I thought, I literally have everything I need. Like I literally have everything I need. And yet there's this nagging sense of, but I could buy a house, or I could, a cool house, and I could do these things, and I should be doing more. And it's that, I mean, in the addiction is that addiction of busyness, of my worth is tied to how busy I am. And it's like, what happens if you actually really, I mean, I think that's what we're seeing with school and work. You really only need like 4 to 6 hours of work a day. Like you can get it done in that time. You don't have to get up at the crack of dawn and then be back at your house, at 7 o'clock at night every single day to feel like you have worth. And it's kind of cool that even companies are being forced to, we're all being forced to look at that. Now, if we depend, it's up to us to take advantage of that.
Right. And I hope so. I am hopeful that the importance of arts and, all of the arts, home ec, all of it, that it becomes relevant again, that these are skills that help with as coping mechanisms, but also just so that you know how to do things. That sense of self-confidence, I always go back to that. I mean, I remember being a kid, the first time that I ever, pulled a souffle out of the oven and it was perfect. I had a great sense of, I can do anything, I was 12 or whatever. But it was very real. It was transferable emotion and sense of self that was so inherent for me, and so I still do that. There's certain challenges or whatever, and I still get that feeling like I can do this. So I'm going to do it. And then I do it. And then it's like, yep, I knew I could. So I do feel like all of this is all tied together for ourselves, but mostly for our children, that we have these opportunities, like, the work that you're doing, your team, what you created in Arkansas, what you're building here in St. Louis. I just think it's amazing. And I wish that there were more people like you, Trish. I'd have a lot bigger circle of friends who understood me.
There you go. Well, there you go. Me too. I know. I told my students, and it's so fun. They're like, I say, this is just the first school. This was just to prove that we could do this. So I need you guys to get ready to run more schools. Like I've just put those seeds in my team and the students and everybody else. I think just on that note of art, I feel like what we're going to see in the next 10 years with the, increasing automation of the workforce is this full cycle back into the Renaissance people, being more well-rounded in the arts and everything else, because we're going to have to find ways to be productive when, the menial tasks have been, other work's been done for us. And you see that right now just with the questioning of higher ed and the cost of higher ed, and people saying like, I hear every day, not everyone's going to college. And I know.
Right. It isn't for everyone the way that it's been designed.
Yeah.
It's just, I think we got into this mode. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but this mode of putting children into all these little check boxes, and it just doesn't work. It never did. It never did. And yet that was still the design. It was still adhered to, even knowing that it doesn't work. That's fascinating.
Well, I mean, that's where, that again goes back to the people at the decision-making table. what are their interests? I mean, what are they motivated by? And unfortunately, I think the proof is in the pudding. If we're seeing the same results that are not being responsive to a changing society, we have to look at that structure. But unfortunately, I've realized that my role is to make things uncomfortable sometimes, and I just have to own it and go, look, this isn't me. This is, I love this quote from Buckminster Fuller. You'll never change things. You'll never change things by by changing the system. You need to make a new system and make the old system obsolete.
Right.
And that's painful for some people, but I'm like, look, that's what happened with the school. I went to the superintendent in our district, and I said, here's this idea that I want to get started, but we need to be able to do this the right way. And, and he said, no, we're fine. Go ahead, give it a try. And then when we doubled enrollment in our second year, he was like the new superintendent, because the other guy got kicked out, basically tried to take us over. And I said, well, you can't, no, I don't trust that you're going to, but you had to do something completely separate and antagonistic to the mainstream, the mainstream system. And so that's what I'm excited about with St. Louis, is what I'm with the school that I'm working with here, because they're traditional and they've let me in. So we'll see how long they'll let me in there.
Well, I know one thing, no matter what happens, you will change some of young people's lives, period.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I know that it's much later for you. And I just wanted to, sort of, if anyone is interested to learn about what you're doing and how do they get a hold of you, or better yet, where do they make donations to your projects that you need? I'd love to just let you just share all that information before we let you go.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much. This has been really, really fun. It's fun. It's like a broadcast catch phone. So
I know, it's great. So very efficient.
I know, checking off a lot of boxes. So Future School of Fort Smith is our school in Arkansas, and that you can find us on Facebook. That's the most real time. We're on there every day posting. So that's Future School of Fort Smith. And if you just send us a message, that's one way to get a hold of us for more information, or to make a donation. And you can also email me at my account, or my email, trish@trishflanagan.com. If you want to make a donation, if you want to have a further chat, if you want to start a school.
That's awesome. I think that's so awesome. And if you don't mind, Trish, I don't know if I sent you the link yet, but we have a group page, Confidence Strategies 101. And if you join the group, then you can also post. I'll get it from you, but you can also post it and answer any questions on there. One thing that I wanted to, before I let you go, if you don't mind, is, the last grant I believe that you got was 1.2 million just recently, right? At the beginning of the month. Mm-hmm. How do you do that in the middle of a pandemic? I'm sure that people would like to know this question.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm telling you, it's communicating well, but you got to start with the right idea that it's time to come. I mean, it's inevitable. Like, we've got, I'm not selling, it's not a sales pitch for another trinket, another thing to fill up your closet. It is essential. So that's why it keeps getting resources put into it, because people realize that, and because I think it's it's divine action. Yeah. And then just a whole hell of a lot of revising and phone calls to people when I don't need anything, just to keep relationships going.
Yeah, it's the follow-up. It's the follow-up, right? And just staying on people's radar and all of that. I really enjoy our conversations. I miss you.
Likewise. I know I need to get back out there. And we could definitely start a school there. So we need a building, we need money, and we need a school leader. That's it.
Okay. All right, then. You never know. You never know. Thank you so much for your time, Trish. And again, please, or even on my Facebook page, you can just put your information there. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And for everyone that has tuned in and stayed with us, we've been at this for a good hour, and I'm really excited. There's a lot that can happen for our children and the next generation. And I just wanted to thank Trish Flanagan for taking time out of her evening. Is it 3 hours ahead, or you're 2 hours ahead?
2. Yeah.
2. Okay, so it's not too bad. But thank you. It was so great to catch up and to see you. And as always, I am so amazed and proud, and just you continue to inspire me. So thank you.
Right back at you, kids.
All right. Thank you so much, Trish. And I will talk to you soon. Let's definitely connect. I think there's something else brewing here.
All right. Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you. And everyone else, thank you so much for spending your evening with us tonight. We tackled some pretty interesting topics about education and our children and the future of, some of the changes that we could make. Trish Flanagan is unstoppable in what she does. And I think there's lots of lessons to be learned there. Before I sign off, I do also want to mention that I'm working with another incredible force. She is an amazing colleague and also a friend of mine. Her name is Rosalidia Dubon, and we're bringing you an online coaching program. It's under the Elevate umbrella. It's for startups and first-time entrepreneurs and mompreneurs and entrepreneurs. So right now we're fine-tuning the different curriculums and we're building the infrastructure. We'll keep you posted. I'll let you know when we're going to start accepting applications. Next week, we've got Nicole Moreno. She's the host, one of the co-hosts for Doing the Damn Thing, an entrepreneurial series of webisodes. She's my co-host with Yo Soy Latina, and she's the founder of Epifania magazine. So I'm looking forward to that interview next week as well. Once again, thank you to our sponsor, Music City Hit Factory. It's a nonprofit online community. It's an educational music program, and we're launching soon here in San Francisco. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week at 7 o'clock. Stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you in the Bay Area here online in the Bay Area as we continue to evolve and explore and thrive together. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you for staying, with me, and I'll see you next week. And have a good evening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.